Now, the latest ITV News from Granada Reports with Gamal Fahnbulleh and Lucy Meacock.
Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, on the programme this evening.
The coronavirus jab hits the high streets. Vaccinations are underway in some of our local pharmacies, with the over 80s being targeted.
This last week or two has been really scary from the death rate. You know you're in that age range, you're very vulnerable. You've got to take medical advice.
The first-time buyers who could lose their dream homes because construction's been delayed by the pandemic.
You have that initial gut feeling, this is the house for you. So to have that kind of taken away from you is quite upsetting.
The once bustling airport that looks more like a ghost town because of coronavirus, and what its bosses want from the governments.
The woman behind some of our biggest TV dramas steps out from behind the camera.
And after warnings for snow and ice across the region today, still some weather hazards overnight tonight. Full forecast a little later on.
Two pharmacies in Cheshire are among the first in the country to offer the coronavirus jab in the race to get millions of us vaccinated over the next few weeks. Hundreds of other high street chemists are to follow suit.
And the Health Service has revealed figures on how that vaccine rollout has gone in its first month. So what do they tell us? Well, that more than 318,000 jabs were given in the northwest between December the 8th and January the 10th.
More than a third of our over 80s, some of the most vulnerable people, have received their first dose of the vaccine. That puts us in about the middle of the regional league table.
And so far, 3.6% of our whole population here in the northwest have received at least one dose of the vaccine. This report from our correspondent, Andy Bonner.
2 weeks into the new year, and the COVID-19 vaccine rollout appears to be gathering pace. In care homes,
awesome. Shall we get you vaccinated?
Drive-thrus, and now at pharmacies. The push to protect the most vulnerable is on.
Well, it means to me that I can go now and visit my grandchildren if this works. And having it done now was no problem. Brilliant.
I live on my own. I'm a widow, you know. Yeah. I miss my friends and not being able to see my family. I feel better knowing that something's being done and helping us.
Appleton Village Pharmacy in Widnes is one of 6 in the country to launch their pilot programme today. Others will follow, though for now it's appointments only.
Definitely since the beginning of the pandemic as well, pharmacies have been instrumental in helping support across the wider NHS and across the wider community. They know us and they know they can ask us the hard questions, and we'll be honest and open and help them as much as we can.
In a month's time, the government aims for all those in the 4 most vulnerable groups who want a vaccination to have had one. Yet some fear glitches and discrimination in a system which has seen a patchy start. One Manchester Labour MP wants a breakdown of the numbers from the government.
Even in the best organisation, with manufacturing something as complicated as this, it could go wrong, and they don't want to be held account. The whole business is a life and death thing. The longer it takes to get this vaccine out, the more people will die. It's as simple as that.
If they are teething problems, unfortunate, yes. Hopefully things that can be got over as quickly as possible. But again, trying to move from 0 to vaccinating 90,000 people a week in Greater Manchester alone, it's not going to be perfect immediately.
The vaccination clinic in Macclesfield, where vaccine maker AstraZeneca has a nearby base, was set up in a whirlwind. But the pharmacist says it's been one of the biggest days of his career.
I just feel honoured to be part of that process so that we can see the end of the pandemic. We've been here for 30 years. I know 4 generations of some families. So we're hardwired into this community. So I feel very close to the people that I'm vaccinating.
The government says every area has received a fair share of the vaccinations, and it aims to accelerate the programme in the coming weeks. Andy Bonner, ITV News.
Yeah, we'll be watching with interest. Now, the whole idea of the Help to Buy scheme was to help first-time buyers get onto the housing ladder, of course. But people hoping to buy properties at a site in Salford could lose thousands of pounds unless the government extends the deadline.
The building schedule's fallen behind because of COVID infections and restrictions and won't be completed until at least April. But Help to Buy buildings have to be completed by the end of February.
The implications are widespread, and as we've been finding out, many people fear without it, they won't be able to afford to buy their properties at all. Our political correspondent Hannah Miller reports.
When they first saw this show home on a development in Salford, Greg and David started to make plans of their own.
You have that initial gut feeling, this is the house for you. So to have that kind of taken away from you is quite upsetting.
They saved for years to get a deposit for what they call their dream home, helped along by a government programme that's helped thousands to buy with a deposit of 5%. But to qualify for the current scheme, houses must be finished by the end of next month. And here, COVID delays mean that isn't going to happen.
For us to lose out on the home, it would just be gutting. And if the government don't extend the scheme, we'll not only back to square one, but we lose thousands of pounds in solicitor fees.
The scheme had been due to close at the end of last year, but in July the government extended it for an extra 2 months. At the time, the Housing Minister said it would provide certainty and assurance for families whose homes had been delayed. But despite regional restrictions and 2 more national lockdowns, for now the deadline seems set in stone.
By their own admission, they've published reports that say that the average house build is delayed by 3 to 9 months. Well, if that's the case, then let the people who have had their funding approved by the Help to Buy the same amount of time to complete their purchase. That's all we're asking.
The developer says it's simply not possible to speed up construction while still working safely.
We had up to 8 weeks delay on our windows and doors because manufacturing was going a lot slower. In the northwest, we've had a much higher infection rate, which means that a lot more of our workers have been affected by coronavirus or have had to isolate or have caught the virus themselves. So yeah, certainly I think the northwest is more affected in terms of our construction projects than other areas around the country.
Today, Conservative MPs met with the Housing Minister, urging him to think again.
The government isn't going to be out of pocket if it just shifts this deadline slightly. So I think it's a relatively easy tweak to make, which I'll be really impressing on the Minister, and I'm sure that colleagues around the country will be doing the same for their constituents.
Greg and David have already discovered they're not alone, campaigning alongside other buyers from the same development who all stand to lose out.
It was a bit of a lifeline really for actually getting a house that would be suitable for us for the next few years, we hope.
I just hope that common sense prevails. I think it's the limbo at the moment that's more difficult.
Yeah. And do you all like each other?
Seems to,
yeah. We have to say yes now we're on Zoom.
I don't know what we'd have done if it was just me and Seb. We probably would have given up a long time ago, but it's been really nice to reach out to other people, and we're all in the same boat. We all want the same thing.
As this group already start to become good friends, it'll be the government who decides if they become good neighbours as well.
Yeah, let's hope they can. Hannah joins us live now. Hannah, what's been the response from the government on this?
Well, there's been silence from those who were in that meeting this afternoon, Lucy. Unclear exactly what that means for the chances of things changing. The government previously said that it won't push back this deadline again. Today, in a statement, they told us that they continue to monitor the situation. It's very obvious that while construction is allowed to continue during this lockdown, the levels of infection and therefore staff absences are much higher than they were when this deadline was initially set. And there's a sense in Westminster that momentum around this is only going to grow and grow, with housing associations from across the country tonight starting to lobby the government for them to make that change. There is a new Help to Buy scheme for people looking to buy later this year or into next year, but it's not as generous and it wouldn't help any of those people who we've heard from tonight.
Hannah, thanks. We'll be keeping an eye on that one too. Well, next tonight, one of the frightening and often unseen consequences of lockdown. domestic abuse charities say financial worries and more time stuck in together has led to a rise in cases.
Yeah, Amna Abdulatif is from Women's Aid, one of 3 organisations who have come together to offer advice for people dealing with an abusive partner.
Lockdown does not mean that you have to stay in an abusive relationship. If you are experiencing abuse, call out for help, ask for help. You can contact the police if you are in any danger. There are lots of women's organisations where you don't have to actually speak to somebody on the phone. Women's Aid, for instance, has a chat line, so you can text somebody, you can email somebody for support, and there are lots of people who can support you. I mean, if you've got any family members, friends, etc., they can find the right support for you. Refuges are still available for women who need to leave abusive relationships, so it is really incredibly important for women to just know that the support is out there if they need it.
What would your message be to somebody who is deeply concerned about a friend or family member who is being abused right now?
I think just a number of things. I think just understanding what impact domestic abuse can have on that person is really important. And there's lots of resources and information out there. Women's Aid has a lot of kind of information for anyone who's worried about a friend or a family member that you can access as support. You can also yourself contact any of the emergency phone lines and speak to somebody and just explain to them what that situation is for that person that you're worried about. And they will be able to guide you through how to deal with that issue. But I think what's important is, lots of women are experiencing isolation. One of the tactics that perpetrators use is taking their victims away from their family, away from their friends, so that they don't have anyone to go to for help. And it's really important that even when your friend might be pushing you away, you do continually just ask about them, call them regularly, find out if they need anything, try to approach the subject as sensitively as possible in a non-judgmental way, just saying that you're just worried, that you're seeing lots of changes in their behavior, or they haven't turned up to lots of events, or whatever it is that's maybe changed in that person's behavior that has you worried, and just do it in a way that is compassionate. And also, lots of people always ask, well, why don't they just leave? If they're experiencing that abuse, why don't they just leave? And actually, one of the most dangerous points in a victim's journey is actually when they leave. And it's really important that there is a strategy about how they leave and when they leave, and that's done at their pace. So it's important not to question the reasons why they might be staying in an abusive relationship, but just being able to provide them with the information and support that they might need, and for them to just know that you are there if they need it. And I think that's really key.
Amna, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
More news now. A jury has been told a woman from Darwin was killed by her boyfriend, who then disposed of her body. Susan Waring was last seen in January 2019, although her body's never been found. A jury in Preston was told traces of her blood were discovered at the home of Alan Edwards. He denies her murder and the trial continues.
Jobs have been saved at a Rolls-Royce factory in Lancashire after workers accepted a deal following a long-running dispute. Members of the Unite union at the plant in Barnoldswick went on strike last November in protest at plans to cut jobs and move some production of aeroplane fan blades to Singapore.
Transport leaders have reacted with dismay after funding for local schemes was cut by the Department for Transport. It means the proposed contactless ticketing scheme for Greater Manchester will no longer happen. Funding for Northern Powerhouse Rail, which will improve links between the North West and Yorkshire, has also been cut back.
Now, we've brought you plenty of stories about the dreadful impact of COVID on many of our industries. Tonight, we take a detailed look at how one of our airports is coping.
Yes, at Liverpool John Lennon, they're used to handling up to 80 flights a day. Well, now it's often only around 10% of that, and they say they need help from the government, as our correspondent Ashley Derricott reports.
There's silence where you'd expect to hear the thunder of jet engines. A year ago, Liverpool's John Lennon Airport was handling 60 to 80 flights a day. In summer, it's normally twice that. Today there will be just 3 departures, essential services to the Isle of Man and Northern Ireland.
It's a shame because people can't go wherever they go now. Like, you have to stay home, and it shouldn't be that way. I don't think it should be that way. Like, we're losing our freedom. And of course, there is a reason.
Are you happy to fly at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm very happy about that, yeah.
But someone who's not is the man in charge of operations.
Obviously, as an airport and as a business, our revenue numbers have just fallen through the floor. While we've remained open, obviously the cost base and the operation stays pretty much intact. So very, very challenging financially, mentally, as a business to keep going. Very, very difficult.
They've done everything they can to make this airport COVID compliant, from social distancing to the availability of on-site virus testing. But current restrictions on freedom of movement means it's just not possible for the majority of us to fly. One of the major challenges facing the airline industry has been reacting to rapidly changing rules. For instance, from Monday, passengers arriving here from outside of the UK will have to have had a negative COVID test within 72 hours. All this leaves airports wanting simpler and cheaper safety measures to help recover lost trade when eventually lockdown is lifted. It's not just those who host and operate flights that have suffered financially. Most of the airport's retailers have been forced to close. Some may never reopen. There's a sense of increasing desperation that with better testing and vaccine comes a busy summer season. Ashley Derricott, ITV News at Liverpool Airport.
Still to come tonight.
The star of the slopes who's celebrating a return to the podium.
And we may have lost that snow warning overnight tonight, but plenty of weather hazards as we head into the next 24 hours. Frost, ice and freezing fog. But will there be any sunshine for Friday? Full forecast a little later on.
Sunshine, that was the word we were looking for, Kerry. And let's take a look at what's coming up at 6:30 with Mary.
Coming up on the programme, the impact of COVID on NHS waiting times as they hit another record high. 4.5 million are now waiting to start treatment. That was even before the Christmas surge in coronavirus cases. Doctors say it is a devastating situation. Also ahead, snow disrupts the vaccine rollout as pharmacies begin delivering jabs. And
happy birthday, dear Polly.
Happy birthday to Polly, the 106-year-old who survived 2 world wars and now 2 bouts of COVID. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Yeah, she's made of strong stuff, Polly. Now then, one of the most difficult things to give up in the pandemic has been hugging.
Yeah, and footballers are continuing to hug despite being told not to, Mike.
Yeah, that's right, Gamal. The Premier League will again remind its players of their responsibilities after its appeals to minimise contact were ignored in games this week.
The moment you score a goal and one guy runs and the other one don't go to celebrate with him, it's weird, it's uncomfortable. I don't know what's going to happen. But when we play football games, because we are tested in the last, 10 days, we tested maybe 5-6 times. So every 2 days we have tests. So everyone is negative. So it's outdoor. So it's not, so like the virus is less aggressive. So I don't know. We're going to follow the Premier League says, but I don't know we'll be able to do it.
Everton's Premier League game at Aston Villa this weekend has been postponed due to a COVID outbreak at Villa Park. Villa had to field a youth side against Liverpool in the FA Cup last week after 9 players and 5 staff tested positive for COVID. They postponed yesterday's match with Spurs and have now done the same for the visit of Carlo Ancelotti's side on Sunday. Meanwhile, the start of the new rugby league season has been delayed because of the pandemic. The Super League campaign will now start 2 weeks later on March the 25th. Clubs have decided they want to wait as long as possible in the hope of starting the season with fans at games. The new championship season, which will feature Widnes, Oldham and Swinton, will also be delayed by several weeks. And Sale must wait to find out if they're still involved in Rugby Union's European Champions Cup. The final 2 group games, which were postponed because of COVID, will not now be played. The tournament is moving straight to a knockout format.
getting that winning feeling. Fords of Winsford. Sponsored the Granada Sport Report.
Well, the COVID pandemic is impacting so many sports at the moment, including skiing. Lancashire's Dave Riding has so far spent the winter in a bubble with his team as they compete across Europe. And his next World Cup event has been moved twice in the last 48 hours. The three-time Winter Olympian made the podium for the first time in 2 years last weekend in Switzerland. And he's been showing Vicky Grimes his rather unusual prize.
Show us your cowbell then, come on.
Proper heavy, you know.
Right. Look at that bad boy. Where are you going to put that?
Andy's into the spare room and it's going next to me.
Poor man, your lovely fiancée. She's getting kicked out into the spare room so that you can sleep with your winning cowbell.
Just for a couple of nights, you know.
How did it feel to be back on the podium?
After Zagreb finishing 27th, I was obviously self-doubt creeping in and wondering if I still had it. Or the legs were done, but it's great to have some teammates there because on my other podiums it's just been me. So yeah, now we've got this new generation of guys coming through. It's so good to have them there.
Are you feeling like a bit of an old croc now then with all these youngsters coming in?
It kind of makes me think I'm younger than I am, but obviously when I look in the mirror and see my bald head and wrinkles, then yeah.
Well, we think you're doing all right, especially given the circumstances this year, because like everything else, coronavirus is affecting the World Cup circuit. They've had to change your next race venue twice in the last 48 hours because of local outbreaks, and it means you've now got 2 slalom races.
I'm not a big fan of back-to-back races, certainly not at my age. But no, it's just another obstacle to overcome. We're just lucky to be racing. Because I train in Austria, they're massive ski fanatics, and they will block off whole runs so that ski teams can train. We literally can't travel without tests. I have about 4 tests a week, and we're always in a bubble, no contact. This is the most socialising I do, is the Zoom interviews. So yeah, I had no home for Christmas. Not been home since November.
So you've not been back to Boskin's, your lovely coffee shop then, have you, at all?
Not been able to help wash up, you know, any excuse. Whole family gets behind me, so yeah, nice to give them a bit of a boost.
Well, very sadly, you lost one of your biggest cheerleaders in the family this year, didn't you?
My little Nana Joyce, she sadly passed away.
What do you think she'd be saying to you now?
Well, after last season, the first thing she said to me, she told me to find my mojo, so I didn't in Zagreb, so maybe she gave me a kick up the derriere before this race, you know.
What's happening about the wedding? Because obviously that got cancelled last year.
No, I think she wants to lock me down. I can feel it. Yeah.
Stop you going away all the time. She wants you back doing those dishes in Boston.
Yeah, I think I've just bought myself another year though.
Yeah, great to see Dave hitting some form again with 12 months to go to the Winter Olympics. That's your sport tonight, Lucy.
Yeah, brilliant. What a great character he is as well. And those wonderful empty slopes. They look amazing. Thanks for that, Mike. Well, next tonight, if you think of your favourite gripping and gritty TV dramas, the chances are Nicola Schindler is behind them. She's one of the most successful women in the business, and she set up her own company, Red Productions, in Manchester over 20 years ago.
Since then, her success has been incredible, from Queer as Folk to Scott and Bailey. And we're pleased to say she found time to chat to our entertainment correspondent, Caroline Whitmore, about her brand new drama.
I remember now you said it. Are you all right? You look like you've got flu.
Aren't you going to introduce us?
Nicola Schindler is the super producer from Rochdale who set up Red Production Company over 20 years ago. She's brought us the likes of Queer as Folk, Last Tango in Halifax, Happy Valley, Scott and Bailey, and more recently, The Stranger. But now it's a new year and a new start.
Nicola, you are one of the UK's most successful producers. Did you ever expect that you would be as successful as you are today?
Never expected anything to happen beyond the next production. All you can do is try and get the best script to the best stage.
Your brand new production company, which has been backed by ITV, are you allowed to tell us its name?
So the name is going to be Key Street Productions, because I wanted to find a name that meant something to me, that had some impact on my career, and starting at Key Street in Granada when I was working on Cracker was such a brilliant time for me.
I love that name. For me, you're like the Ant and Dec effect. You know, you've got that Midas touch where, oh, Nicholas Schindler's produced it, it will be a hit. Do you feel the pressure of that?
I still can't take that seriously. It's not true, for a start. Filming is hard work, so it never feels like an easy sailing. It never feels like, well, this is going to be huge.
Ugly, aren't they? He doesn't look much like me.
And Russell T Davies, he is one of the writers who you collaborate a lot with. It was groundbreaking to Queer as Folk. Did you recognise that back in the day?
No, then I was too young. Then I just thought, this is just great drama.
That's the truth.
It's the Sin will be our 10th production together, and that's going out on Channel 4, 22nd of January. It's just a privilege to be able to work with him.
I'll need to access my husband's account.
Sadly, that's not allowed.
He died last night. Does that make a difference?
Sorry, no.
Finding Alice, which is coming out on Sunday, a brand new drama starring Keely Hawes. Do you still get nervous watching Finding Alice?
Oh, totally, yes, because you want everyone to watch it. If they are watching, you've no idea whether they like it.
So he just fell down the stairs? Oh, don't you start.
About a woman who loses her husband very abruptly. The whole series will also be on the ITV Hub at the same time. The whole streaming culture means that you don't have to panic about an audience overnight.
Because they think I killed him.
Because in a world where there's hundreds of dramas out there, people want to watch the next Keely Hawes. So hopefully they will.
And they will, because we're all staying in.
Yes.
You must be very sad. You are a genius.
Yeah, a captive audience. Looks amazing.
Yeah, that is my box set list for the weekend sorted. The weather now, and here's Kerry with details of what looks like a cold night ahead.
Yeah, the clouds would have moved on soon.
And us too, hopefully.
ITV Granada weather, sponsored by United Utilities. Water for the North West.
Hello, very good evening to you. Ice is the main hazard overnight tonight and through into tomorrow. We did have that snow earlier on today, but that's going away now. For most of us, it's been cold and it's been wet, and that combination of cold and wet conditions overnight tonight will bring the real risk of ice and maybe even some freezing fog into the early hours of tomorrow. So a rather grey start on Friday, but it is a drier day, maybe some brightness into the afternoon and a mixed weekend ahead. So we stick in that cold air for now. Wet and windy spell on Saturday, could see some snow on the leading edge initially. A cold northwesterly on Sunday, but drier and brighter. And then less cold or temperatures back to near average as we head towards Monday. Short-lived, less cold or milder spell, but unfortunately with stronger winds and showery outbreaks. But back to the here and now. Overnight tonight, still some cloud out there and a few showers over the next few hours, but it becomes mainly dry, clear, frosty, icy, pretty chilly for most of us overnight tonight. Warnings out for icy stretches as we head towards dawn, and yes, some freezing fog patches, so some poor visibility as we head into Friday morning. Watch out for icy stretches first thing if you do have to travel, but into the afternoon, hopefully if you're having a daily walk, it will be a little bit drier and brighter. Still feeling chilly though, but maybe with a little bit of sunshine into the afternoon. Now under those clearer skies, we see a frost again as we head into Friday night, and up against that frost, a wet and windy spell the early hours of Saturday, so maybe some initial snow right over the tops on the leading edge of that system, but behind it a legacy of cloud, damp but not quite as cold. Cold northwesterly on Sunday, but drier and brighter, a bit of a wind chill, and then temperatures down to near average by Monday.
Come on, next job.
ITV Granada weather, sponsored by United Utilities.
Thanks, Kerry. Some comments from you on the vaccination rollout before we go. Iris Owen in St Helens. I don't know anyone who's had the vaccine. My friend's mum is 91 with underlying health conditions, and she can't get any information about when her mum will get it.
Sarah tweeted us, my 84-year-old granddad got his first dose just under 2 weeks ago and is now awaiting his second. It's nice to know he's got a bit of protection against the virus, but looking forward to the day he gets his second one and completes the doses.
And Kate says, literally just got back from my dad's appointment. He's 90 and in Accrington. It was excellent, brilliantly organised, supported by Rotary volunteers, quick and efficient. Well done to them.
Well, that is us for this evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Bye-bye.